Welcome to Coins Hunter USA, the place where hidden treasures from American history come alive. Every coin has a story, and today we're uncovering one of the most exciting pieces you might still find in your pocket change, the Washington quarter. This is not just spare change, it's a collector's dream waiting to be discovered. So stay with me as we dive into the secrets, the errors, and the shocking value behind this rare coin. Top 1 today, we're about to uncover the story of one of the most mysterious and exciting coins in U.S. history, the 1965 Washington quarter. At first glance, it may look like an ordinary quarter that you'd get back as change at a grocery store, but don't be fooled. This coin has hidden secrets, rare errors, and an incredible backstory that makes it one of the most valuable finds in American coinage. So, listen carefully, because if you've got an old quarter lying around from the mid-60s, you could be sitting on a small fortune. The year 1965 marked a major turning point in U.S. coin history. Up until 1964, all Washington quarters were struck in 90% silver. But as silver prices began to skyrocket, the cost of producing silver coins became more expensive than the coins themselves. To solve this, the U.S. Mint made the bold decision to eliminate silver from circulating quarters starting in 1965. Instead, they introduced a copper-nickel clad composition, which is the same metal mixture used for quarters today. This change was massive, and collectors across the nation immediately started hoarding coins, knowing that silver would never again appear in everyday quarters. Now, here's where things get fascinating. Although the Mint planned to switch completely to clad composition in 1965, some leftover silver planchets from 1964 accidentally made their way into the presses. That means there are rare 1965 Washington quarters out there that were struck on 90% silver instead of the new copper-nickel clad. These transitional era coins are among the most valuable and exciting discoveries in the entire Washington quarter series, but silver planchet errors aren't the only reason collectors go crazy for the 1965 quarter. Some were also struck on wrong planchets, such as dime planchets or foreign coin blanks. Others display striking errors, off-center strikes, double strikes, or missing clad layers, that make them stand out from the millions of ordinary examples. Each of these minting mistakes turns a common pocket change coin into a collector's dream. So how can you tell if you've got one of these rare treasures? The first thing to check is the coin's weight. A normal 1965 copper-nickel clad quarter weighs about 5.67 grams. But if you've got one struck on a silver planchet, it will weigh closer to 6.25 grams. That tiny difference can make all the difference between a coin worth 25 cents and a coin worth thousands of dollars. Another giveaway is the coin's edge. Clad quarters show a visible copper stripe along the edge, while a silver quarter will appear solid white all the way around. These subtle clues could mean the difference between spending your quarter on a soda or cashing it in for a life-changing discovery. Collectors also look at condition. While circulated 1965 silver-era quarters can still bring in big money, those found in pristine, uncirculated condition can fetch truly jaw-dropping prices. A shiny, mint-state silver-era quarter is extremely rare because most were used in everyday commerce and quickly wore down. The few that survived in near-perfect condition are now worth a fortune. The story of the 1965 Washington quarter is more than just about errors, it represents a turning point in American history. The end of silver coinage marked the close of one era and the beginning of another. Collectors cherish these coins because they capture that exact moment of change, when silver was disappearing from circulation forever. It's a reminder of how money evolves with the economy, and how small mistakes at the mint can turn ordinary objects into priceless treasures. Now comes the part you've been waiting for, the value. If you are lucky enough to own a 1965 Washington quarter struck on a silver planchet, or one with an extraordinary error in excellent condition, you could be holding a coin worth an incredible $123,000. That's right, what looks like ordinary pocket change could actually be a life-changing discovery. So, the next time you're digging through an old coin jar, searching through rolls from the bank, or simply checking the change in your wallet, don't ignore the quarters from 1965. One of them might just make you a fortune. Top 2, we're exploring a coin that most people have probably held in their hands without even thinking twice about it, the 1971 Washington quarter. On the surface, it's just another 25-cent piece. But when you look deeper, you'll see why collectors from around the world are chasing after certain versions of this coin and why one of them sold for the jaw-dropping price I'll reveal later in this video. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American coinage since 1932, first introduced to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By 1971, the design had already been in circulation for nearly 4 decades, but the coin was far from ordinary. This was a time when the U.S. Mint had fully transitioned away from silver coinage, shifting to the copper-nickel clad composition we still see today. It marked a new chapter in coinage history, but here's where things get fascinating. Even though billions of quarters were minted that year, a very small number came out with errors, unusual features, or were preserved in such perfect condition that today they are worth thousands. sometimes tens of thousands, of dollars. And in one incredible case, a 1971 Washington quarter reached a value of $102,000. Let's break down how and why this happened. First, let's talk about mint errors. Errors are the magic words in coin collecting because they instantly change the destiny of a coin. In 1971, the mint was running full steam, producing coins for everyday commerce. With such high demand, mistakes were bound to slip through. Some coins were struck off-center, meaning the design doesn't sit perfectly on the coin but instead is shifted to one side. Others were double-struck, so you'll see overlapping images of Washington's profile or the eagle on the reverse. Then there are missing clad layer errors. These are coins that appear copper-colored on one side because the nickel layer didn't bond properly during minting. Collectors go crazy for these because they're one of a kind, and no two errors are ever exactly the same. One of the most exciting errors tied to the 1971 Washington quarter involves wrong planchet strikes. That means the coin was struck on a blank meant for a different denomination. Imagine a quarter-sized coin, but lighter like a dime, with parts of the design cut off because the planchet was too small. Or even more rare, a quarter struck on leftover silver blanks from earlier years. If you find one of these, you're holding something incredibly valuable, because mistakes like this shouldn't even exist. They're accidents of history, and that's exactly why collectors treasure them. Now, let's talk about condition, because condition can make or break a coin's value. Most 1971 quarters went straight into circulation, rattling around in pockets, cash registers, and vending machines. Over time, they picked up scratches, wear, and loss of luster. But the few that managed to survive in pristine condition, untouched by circulation, are a completely different story. Professional grading companies like PCGS or NGC often give these coins mint state grades, and the higher the grade, the higher the value. A coin graded MS65, MS66, or even MS67 from 1971 can command prices many collectors would be shocked to pay. Why? Because they are so rare. It's like finding a needle in a haystack, a quarter that's been frozen in time for over 50 years, still looking brand new. Let's imagine this for a second. Picture going through an old jar of coins in your grandparents' house. You pull out a shiny quarter from 1971 that looks almost untouched. At first, you think it's just pocket change worth 25 cents. But then you take a closer look. The details are sharp, the luster is still there, and maybe, just maybe, it has an unusual strike or error. You decide to get it graded. Weeks later, the results come back. It's a high-grade mint state example, or even better, an error coin. Suddenly, this little quarter is no longer worth just a soda from a vending machine. Instead, you've got a piece of history worth thousands, or in one remarkable case, worth over 6 figures. That's the thrill of coin collecting. Collectors don't just see money when they look at these coins. They see stories. Every scratch, every shine, every error tells a story of the minting process, the economy, and even the history of the era. The 1971 quarter, for example, was made during a time of big changes in America, socially, politically, and economically. And in its own way, this little coin is a time capsule of that moment. So, how high can the value really go? While most 1971 quarters you'll find in circulation are worth only face value, the rare gems, the perfect mint state examples and the error coins, can command staggering prices at auction. In fact, one of these rare 1971 Washington quarters has sold for as much as $102,000. Yes, you heard that right, $102,000 for a coin most people would never give a second glance. Think about that for a second. A single quarter that could buy you a car, pay off debt, or even become the down payment for a house. That's the magic of coin collecting. It's the excitement of finding value in the everyday, of uncovering treasure in the most unlikely places. So the next time you get a handful of change, don't just toss those quarters aside. Look at the date, check for unusual features, and pay attention to the condition. Who knows, you could be holding onto something that's not just worth 25 cents, but a life-changing discovery. Top 3. We're diving into the fascinating story of the 1973 Washington quarter, a coin that looks ordinary to most people, but has proven to be an extraordinary find for collectors who know what to look for. By the end of this video, you'll understand why certain examples of this quarter are worth an astonishing amount of money. Now, let's start with a little background. The Washington Quarter series began in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of the first U.S. President, George Washington. By 1973, the design had become an American classic, George Washington on the front, the heraldic eagle on the reverse. But even though billions were minted, not all of these coins are created equal. Some are common pocket change, while others are the kind of coins that can change your life. So, what makes a 1973 Washington quarter rare and valuable? The first factor is errors. The U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure in the early 1970s to produce massive amounts of coinage for circulation, and with such high production numbers, mistakes inevitably slipped through. These mistakes, or mint errors, are like gold to collectors. For example, off-center strikes are one of the most sought-after errors. Instead of being perfectly centered, part of the design is shifted, sometimes so dramatically that Washington's profile is missing a section or the date is cut off. Then there are double-struck quarters, which show two overlapping images because the coin was struck more than once by the dies. These mistakes transform a regular coin into a unique collectible because no two error coins are exactly alike. Another fascinating error is the missing clad layer. By 1973, quarters were made of a copper core sandwiched between nickel layers. But sometimes, during the minting process, one of those outer layers failed to bond properly. The result is a coin with one side appearing copper-colored, as if it's missing its nickel coating. Coins like this grab the attention of every serious collector because they stand out immediately and are extremely rare. Even more exciting are wrong planchet errors. That's when a quarter is struck on a blank meant for another denomination. Imagine a quarter-sized coin that feels lighter because it was struck on a dime blank, or one that has an unusual shine because it was accidentally struck on a leftover silver planchet. These errors are like accidents of history, things that weren't supposed to happen, yet somehow did, and now they're priceless to collectors. But it's not just errors that make the 1973 quarter valuable. Condition is another huge factor. Most of the quarters from this year went straight into circulation, meaning they've been used, scratched, and worn down over decades. But the few that were set aside in pristine, mint-state condition are like time capsules. When these coins are graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, those with the highest grades, MS66, MS67, and above, become incredibly valuable. The shine, the details in Washington's hair, the crispness of the eagle's feathers on the reverse, these are the features that set them apart and make collectors willing to pay huge premiums. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're going through an old coin jar, and you find a 1973 quarter. At first, it looks like nothing more than 25 cents. But then you notice it looks unusually sharp, with barely any scratches or wear. Maybe you spot something odd in the strike, an off-center design, a double detail, or a copper-colored surface. You decide to have it checked by a grading company, and to your surprise, it turns out to be one of those rare examples. Suddenly, that single coin is no longer pocket change, it's treasure. Collectors know that every coin tells a story. The 1973 Washington quarter tells a story of mass production, minting mistakes, and the survival of a few coins in stunning condition. And that's why this coin has earned its place among the rare and valuable finds of American coinage. Now, let's talk numbers. While most 1973 quarters you'll find in circulation are worth just their face value, the rare ones, the high-grade examples and the dramatic mint errors, can reach prices that are almost unbelievable. In fact, one rare 1973 Washington quarter has been valued as high as $99,000, yes, you heard that right. $99,000 for a single quarter. Imagine turning a simple coin that most people overlook into something that could buy you a car, pay off bills, or even change your life. That's the excitement of coin collecting. It's not just about money, it's about the thrill of discovery and the stories hidden in plain sight. So, the next time you get a quarter in your change, take a closer look. Check the date, study the details, and don't ignore the possibility that you might be holding something rare. Because hidden among the ordinary, there are treasures waiting to be found. Top 4. We're diving into the fascinating story of one of the most surprising coins ever made in the United States, the Washington quarter from 1979. At first glance, you might think this coin is just another quarter, worth only 25 cents. But don't be fooled. Hidden among the billions of quarters minted that year are some rare and extraordinary pieces that are now highly sought after by collectors. And believe me, some of these coins are worth more than most people could ever imagine. In fact, one of these rare 1979 Washington quarters has sold for a jaw-dropping amount. I'll tell you that figure at the very end of this video, so stay tuned. Let's start with the basics. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. For decades, this coin featured his portrait on the obverse and a proud eagle on the reverse. By 1979, these coins were made not of silver, as earlier quarters once were, but from a copper-nickel-clad composition. Billions were struck for everyday use. Most of them ended up in circulation, spent on groceries, gas, and all the little things of daily life. But in the world of coin collecting, it's the rare exceptions, the unusual mistakes, and the perfectly preserved coins that catch the spotlight. So, what makes the 1979 Washington quarter special? It's not about the ordinary coins, it's about the rare errors and exceptional conditions that turn this everyday change into a treasure point. One of the most collectible varieties is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank planchet, the piece of metal that becomes the coin, isn't aligned correctly inside the press. The result is a coin where the design is shifted to one side, sometimes dramatically. Collectors love these because no two are exactly alike, and the more dramatic the off-center strike, the more valuable the coin becomes. Another thrilling error is the double strike. Imagine a coin struck once, but then somehow struck again before it leaves the press. This leaves a ghostly, doubled image of Washington or the eagle, almost like a shadow frozen in time. These errors don't just look cool, they can increase a coin's value many times over. And then there's the missing clad layer error. Quarters made after 1965 were supposed to have a nickel-clad surface over a copper core. But in rare cases, that outer layer is missing. This means the coin looks coppery red, like a giant penny on one or both sides. These errors are easy to spot and highly prized by collectors. Another category that always excites collectors is the wrong planchet error. Once in a while, a quarter gets struck on the wrong type of blank, maybe a dime planchet, maybe even a foreign coin blank. These wrong planchet coins often look undersized or have incomplete designs. They're not only rare, but they tell the story of just how unpredictable the minting process can be. But rarity doesn't just come from mistakes. The condition of the coin is just as important. Most 1979 quarters circulated heavily and became worn down. But a small fraction survived in pristine, mint state condition, with sharp details, glossy luster, and no scratches or wear. These coins are incredibly hard to find because coins in circulation naturally wear out over time. When a coin grading company certifies a 1979 Washington quarter as MS66, MS67, or even higher, collectors go crazy for it. The difference between a circulated quarter and a mint state gem can mean the difference between pocket change and thousands of dollars. Now let's talk about collector psychology for a moment. Why do collectors pay so much for these coins? It's because coins are more than money. They're pieces of history, physical objects that connect us to the past. A 1979 Washington quarter isn't just metal, it's a story, a moment frozen in time, and when you add rarity or an error into the mix, it becomes a true treasure. People love owning something that almost no one else has, and they're willing to pay huge sums to add it to their collection. Picture this: you're going through an old jar of change, and you spot a shiny 1979 quarter. You pick it up, look closely, and notice that it's off-center, or maybe it looks copper-colored because of a missing clad layer. You do a little research and find out that you might be holding a coin worth thousands of dollars. That moment, the thrill of discovery, is what keeps coin collectors searching. It's like modern-day treasure hunting. So, what is the ultimate value of the rarest 1979 Washington quarters? While ordinary ones are only worth their face value, certain rare errors and high-grade examples have sold for incredible amounts at auction. And one remarkable 1979 Washington quarter stunned the collecting world when it was valued at an astonishing $87,000. Yes, you heard that right, $87,000 for a coin that started life as nothing more than a quarter. Imagine the excitement of holding something so valuable in your hand, knowing it might have been overlooked by dozens of people before you. That's the magic of coin collecting, the chance that everyday change could be hiding extraordinary wealth. So next time you get a 1979 Washington quarter in your pocket change, don't ignore it. Flip it over, inspect it closely, and keep an eye out for errors, unusual colors, or coins that look almost brand new. Who knows? You might just be the lucky person to uncover one of these hidden treasures. Top 5. If you've ever wondered whether the spare change in your pocket could hide a true treasure, then you're in for a treat today. Because we're going to take a closer look at one of the most fascinating coins of the 1980s, the United States Washington quarter from 1982. At first glance, the 1982 quarter may look like nothing more than a simple 25-cent piece, but behind its ordinary appearance lies a story of rarity, minting quirks, and hidden value. And by the time we get to the end of this video, you'll see how a coin that most people overlook can actually be worth a small fortune. In fact, one of these 1982 Washington quarters has shocked collectors with a value of more than $82,000. Let's set the stage. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932, celebrating the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. By 1982, the coin had been in circulation for 50 years, and the mint was producing millions upon millions of these quarters every year. They were struck in copper nickel clad, no longer silver, as they were before 1965. Because so many were produced, you might think they're all common. But as any serious collector knows, sometimes the rarest treasures hide in plain sight. One of the reasons the 1982 Washington quarter stands out is because of errors and varieties that slipped through during production. You see, the US Mint runs at high speed, striking thousands of coins every minute, and while the process is usually precise, mistakes do happen. And in the world of coin collecting, those mistakes turn into opportunities. Let's start with one of the most desirable types of errors, the off-center strike. When a blank planchet isn't positioned correctly, the design lands off to one side. Sometimes you'll see Washington's portrait pushed far to the edge, or part of the lettering missing. The more dramatic the misalignment, the more exciting it becomes for collectors, with values climbing into the thousands. Another amazing variety is the double die error. Imagine the coin being struck with doubled lettering or numbers, leaving a ghost-like effect that is clearly visible with the naked eye. On some 1982 quarters, collectors have reported doubling on the motto, "In God We Trust," or the word "Liberty." These double details instantly set the coin apart and make it highly desirable. And then there's the missing clad layer error. Since post-1965 quarters were struck with a copper core and nickel coating, occasionally the nickel layer was left out during production. The result is a quarter with a coppery red appearance, almost like a giant penny. These missing clad quarters from 1982 are among the most unique finds in circulation. Collectors also search for wrong planchet errors. In rare cases, a quarter can be struck on a dime planchet, making the coin smaller and thinner, with incomplete details. These rare off-metal strikes are often worth thousands of dollars each, but errors are only part of the story. Condition is just as important. Most 1982 quarters have seen heavy circulation, which means scratches, wear, and dull surfaces. But once in a while, a coin survives in pristine, uncirculated condition, with full luster and razor-sharp details. These mint-state gems are graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, and the higher the grade, the higher the value. A 1982 quarter graded MS67 or above is almost impossible to find, and when it appears at auction, collectors battle fiercely to own it. Now let's talk about why collectors are so drawn to coins like this. It's not just about money, it's about history, rarity, and the thrill of discovery. Every time someone finds a rare 1982 quarter in change, they're holding a little piece of American minting history. It could have passed through hundreds of hands, traveled across states, and been part of everyday life, but its unique qualities set it apart from the rest. Imagine this, you're rolling coins from a jar on your desk, and suddenly, one quarter looks a little strange. Maybe it has a copper tone, or the design looks shifted, or the details are unusually sharp. You take a closer look, realize it's a 1982, and after some research, you discover you might be holding a coin worth thousands of dollars. That sense of excitement, that rush of possibility, is exactly what makes coin collecting so addictive. And now, the part you've been waiting for. While most 1982 Washington quarters are worth face value, a rare error coin or a top-graded gem can sell for incredible amounts. In fact, one of these coins shocked the collecting world when it was valued at an astounding $82,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $82,000 for a coin that many people would pass over without a second glance. That's the kind of treasure hiding right in our change, just waiting to be discovered. So the next time you come across a 1982 Washington quarter, don't just toss it aside. Take a careful look. You never know if you might be holding one of the rarest and most valuable quarters from the modern era. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the story of the 1982 Washington quarter, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss out on more hidden treasures in the world of coins. Keep searching, keep collecting, and who knows, the next valuable coin could be sitting in your very own pocket.